不要忘了我们还有抽奖的活动等着大家，那我们还有设计一些精美的小礼物，只送不卖，60份，送完为止。那想知道我们策划已久的订阅制内容的朋友，请到我们的 show notes 的连结点下去，你就会有更多的 information。 在节目中我们常常分享如何有效的沟通，那最近在某个因缘之下，我找到了一篇关于肿瘤科医生要如何跟病人有效沟通的文章，那决定今天的单元让我们跟大家分享医生所用的 Ask Tell Ask 沟通技巧。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Over the last year and 140 plus episodes, we've tried to take a deeper look into communication in different industries, different niches, and different job functions. And recently, Sherry was inspired by something you didn't think about, but now when it comes out is a really amazing job function. And she was inspired by a guest on the Conan O'Brien podcast.
So on Conan O'Brien podcast, 他有一个 segment 就是特别是请不同的观众，然后呢上他节目。那这位观众呢，他正好他的 profession 他是一个 professional standardized patient， 非常有趣吧？所以他的工作呢，他是个专业的演员，他就是要到这些 medical school 去帮助医生来训练未来的这些医生要如何有效的去 diagnose 一些症状、疾病，还有帮助这些未来的医生要怎么样去了解如何的沟通。Everyone knows that doctors do actually have to get into very difficult conversation and difficult topics, right? So I kind of dig through the internet and I found this article that it's called Approaching Difficult Communication Tasks in Oncology. Oncology 就是肿瘤科，那这个是在2005年的时候 publish， 它在 Cancer Journal for Clinicians。 我就开始来研读这一个文章，我就发现它中间有很多非常实用，而且是我们所有的人都可以用在我们生活上面或者是职场上面的一些很有效的沟通技巧。
And as expected from a journal article, they actually lay out how to have conversations and how to do effective communication in a really clear methodology that people can follow. One of the methodologies that they use is called Ask, Tell, Ask. And we were looking at this, even though they are framing this around how for oncology doctors to have very difficult conversations with patients, maybe explaining their disease, explaining treatment and the prognosis. The formula itself, the methodology itself, is applicable to so many things. And because, as they describe very early in the article, this methodology is based on the idea that education requires knowing what the learner already knows and then helping them build and understand upon it. Anytime we're doing effective communication, that's always really important.
Right.
In presentation and pitching, we talk about audience analysis. But in this case, it's actually a doctor having a better baseline to understand their patients, where they're coming from, allowing the patients to both absorb the information, but also, really importantly, in these difficult conversation situations, allowing room for emotion to come out.
Right. 所以我觉得在所有的沟通，我们都要把它当成一个教育。那医生的角色他是要教育病人，那当然我们有的时候在做 presentation 或者我们在开会的时候，我们也是来教育我们的听众跟我们的观众。I think this all applies, and that's why the first step is to ask. It's not tell, it's to ask. So ask the patient to describe his or her current understanding of the issue. For example, 我们可以问什么样的问题呢？ What is the most important issue for us to talk about today? 或者 To make sure we're on the same page, can you tell me what your understanding of your disease is? Or another question, what have your other doctors been telling you about your illness since the last time we spoke? 所以这个时候我们就了解到对方他对他现在的症状了解多少，还有他的 emotion 这边非常的重要，所有的事情都会有情绪，所以他的情绪现在是怎么样？他是放下了，还是他还是在这个情绪当中？So this is all really important information for us to understand.
And if anyone is familiar with professional coaching, they'll actually recognize some of the way these questions get crafted. For example, what's the most important issue for us to talk about today? And this is going back to understanding not only the patient's level of knowledge, maybe academic or medical knowledge in terms of what is their disease, but also just their emotional state.
Yeah, 我觉得这个 emotional state 是有时候我们在看商业的一些沟通技巧，我们可能不会去想到的部分。但是真的自从了 COVID 之后，我觉得整个世界改变了，有很多公司必须要做的决定一定会带进 emotional state. Like everyone has their emotion to deal with different situations. So we do have to be very aware of that.
One of the things that makes this really powerful is especially in situations where you're giving difficult news, bad news. We talked about the better.com mass firing a few episodes ago. But in these one-on-one situations, actually getting a sense of where they're coming from. Most people, when they give difficult news, automatically go into the explanation mode. Like, okay, why are we doing this? What's going on? You know, the better.com, like, here's the actions you need to take by contacting HR. And that personal side of it just gets thrown away. The emotional side of it gets thrown away. But by asking these questions, like maybe the person actually has a good understanding of what's going on. So rather than just lecturing them and making them feel like they need to like keep their own feelings bottled up, starting by asking questions allows for a smoother start to where the person giving news has a better base of where to start and what to explain more of. And the person who is receiving the news actually has an opportunity to be part of a conversation rather than get lectured at.
So now, of course, we get to the tell stage. 我们要注意的地方是，尤其是我们要 communicate 一些不是这么 happy 的事情，它是 somewhat we call it bad news. When we're being very straightforward, we also need to be aware of how much information we're actually throwing at someone. 有的时候这个时候我们会常常进入一个叫做 lecture mode， 我们就会开始好像在上课一样，把所有的 information 噼里啪啦全部讲出来。But in this article, it says that, you wanted to make the information to be short and digestible chunks.
In fact, they have a great rule of thumb is not to give more than 3 pieces of information at a time and to avoid medical jargon. Now, in my work, I've worked with hundreds of doctors and scientists building out their company, and they do have a tendency to jump very deep into the science or throw in the medical jargon. To them, they're being professional.
Yeah.
But a lot of times for the listener, they don't have enough context to know why, say, an innovation is really impressive, or they don't have enough context to know why something is important. And so this comes down to giving pieces of information in those digestible chunks and doing it in a way that it's like, here are 3 key points.
Right.
Let the other side absorb, check their understanding, and then continue.
所以一次最多就是3个新的一些资讯给对方，那你尽量就是用对方能够了解的语言，而不是用你太专业的术语。So I think that's something that we can all learn for our professional life as well. And of course, the last step is called ask. So you ask the patient if he or she understood what you just said. So it's like, double checking just to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
More importantly, along with the double checking is the way that they give advice on how to phrase the double checking. So a lot of times if you're used to the high school version of double checking, be like, good, did you understand? Yes or no? If you understand, now summarize and give it back to me. It is important, especially in this case, with either difficult or challenging news, to have someone summarize, but a doctor can't turn around and be like, what do you know about this? Explain to me again. Rather, they actually ask a question like, who are you going to tell about this visit when you get home? If someone is receiving medical information from a doctor, they're probably going to get home. Parents, family, spouse are going to ask questions. So they are going to have to re-explain. Well, the doctor can use this as a good way to be like, oh, could you summarize a little bit about how you want to tell other people, or how can I help you to explain this to other people? So this way, it's more of like a collaborative process, but the doctor can check that the person understands.
Another question you could use is, to make sure I did a good job of explaining this to you, can you tell me what you're going to say? And I think this comes from empathy, right? Because it's actually saying, oh, just to make sure I did a good job, right? Of explaining to you, that I didn't over-explain or I didn't lecture you. Could you tell me how I could help you further?
This is not putting the blame like on them. Like, do you understand it? Can you explain it? It's more along like, I want to make sure that I'm doing a good job and that you understand what's going on. So let's work on this. It's very collaborative.
Yeah. It's definitely not like, parents sometimes go, 你听懂了没有? 懂了没有? Because we get into that very easily. But again, you're actually coaching your patient. And I think this is a wonderful way to use in any kind of work situation. 我们不管在工作还是生活当中，一定都会有很多资讯。It's not easy to understand. 或者它带着是情绪 So 我们还是要非常注意情绪它是一定是存在的 So be more careful and be more sensitive when you're delivering news to people And I think I really like this methodology.
So definitely think more about the ask, tell, ask. And outside of giving difficult news, one of the things where this becomes really powerful, why I like ask first, then tell, then ask, is that first ask. A lot of people go into a situation where they're quote unquote giving a presentation, not an onstage presentation, but let's say in a boardroom in front of just a few people. There's nothing that says you must lecture to them. We think presentation, we think, okay, I'm in front and I will just talk for however long I need to talk. But the reality is a good presentation is almost a conversation.
Right.
So starting with ask, starting with understanding what other people in the room know is a really great way to think about beginning any type of presentation or any kind of discussion. Ask, understand their level, then tell them what they need to know, and then ask for some kind of understanding.
或者有的时候我们在做 presentation 的时候，我们都会很希望马上能够进入我们准备已久的 PowerPoint slides, right? We want to get through all these slides that I prepped for so long, but we forgot that it's about the conversation. That's actually worth so much more than going through the slides.
Treat your audience as though they are smart. And your job is just theirs to understand how much they understand, not that they are stupid and you are there to educate them. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this look at how doctors are trained to talk to their patients and see what you can do with it going forward. The journal article that Sherry found actually has a lot more great communication information that we hope to continue sharing with you going forward.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.